Hello people, what is going on? Back again with another video. To my right is Robert, or Rob, as he is known, from the West Ham Massive, and we're here to talk about West Ham United, Julian Lopetegui, and the summer signings. Rob, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all right. The only thing I was glad about, James, is because obviously before we hit record, I told you what my middle names were, and I'm really glad you didn't go the whole 9 yards with it.
I wasn't going to do that to you. This like international break is here. It just feels like West Ham get started and then we have to stop again for another few weeks. What you made of the season, Rob, so far?
Do you know what? Half decent. I'd say it's promising. Obviously the first game was a bit of a disappointment. I didn't actually manage to go to that one, sadly. But on another day, I like to try and take the positives out of a negative where I can. And I don't think a 2-1 home reverse in the first game of the season, when we've done a lot of business in the summer, so there's a lot of new faces around the squad, new coach, hopefully a new philosophy, if that's the right word. And we lost at home by the odd goal in 3 to a team that last season got in the Champions League, and at one point some people thought were dark horses to win the Premier League. And if Thomas Souček had have managed to sort of convert the chance right at the dying embers of the game, we get a point. It's not bad. And then we go, obviously, the London derby. You're never quite sure how they're going to work out. I thought we did well there. I thought we weathered a storm. We found a way, and we, in the end, were decent value for a 2-0 win. And then the City game. Look, let's not kid ourselves. We're playing one of the best 2 club teams in world football, in my opinion, in Man City or Real Madrid. It's one of those two, and we were playing Man City.
Yeah,
we had a go. And again, on another day, Kudus' shot in the second half clips the inside of the post and goes past Ederson, and it's 2-2. And from then on, it's a completely different game, and you're not quite sure what's going to happen. As it was, I do think that the third goal from Haaland gave them a little bit more of a gloss about the scoreline. They were absolutely the better team on the day over the 90 minutes. I've got no problem with that. Best team won. Wipe your mouth and move on. But I just thought 3-1 was a little bit harsh on the lads. I also think, and I'm going to say this, and some people are not going to sort of like me for saying it, but I will, I was rather disappointed that when that third goal went in, there was quite a lot of people in the stadium that just got up and left. I thought that the lads put in a hard enough shift. I think that they deserved a little bit more recognition at the end, in my opinion. But like I say, it's just my opinion. If someone watching this is one of the people that made for the exits, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think that it's just not something that I thought was terribly fair on the lads.
I can understand it. Don't get me wrong. I'm a bit mixed on the season so far. There's a few issues that I think we'll get to later on in this video. But what do you make of Julian Lopetegui, mate, for you?
I think that his reputation is one that precedes him. I mean, look, whatever you want to say about his tenure at Spain and his tenure at Real Madrid, the mere fact that he managed to find himself in those positions where he was the main man for a period of time there does him credit. He's won a European trophy into the bargain. He's managed some of the biggest names and coached some of the biggest names in European, if not world football, in his time. I do think that there may be an element of people that possibly expected the head coach, to be like a second coming of Pep Guardiola. He's not cut from that cloth in terms of what I believe his playing style to be. It will be more possession than what the guy he's replaced served up, 30% or something like that possession. He'll be a little bit more possession based, but if people are thinking we're going to be Barcelona 2008, it's not going to happen.
I agree. I agree to a point, but I do think there is little things where I think he changes it in game, which is
Mm.
good. Like, don't get me wrong, he's very fast, and he's what I like about Lopetegui is that he's ruthless in his approach. I.e., like if the player ain't performing, he will hook him at half time. I think the Aston Villa game, maybe that was just a one-off, but at half time, 1-1 after getting completely sort of dominated to a point in that first half against Villa, not making no subs at all. I was like, well, I don't know about that one, Julian. But nevertheless, he gets the result against Palace. We obviously get through against Bournemouth in the League Cup, which for me was a bit like that again. I'm like thinking
Yeah,
we should be rolling Bournemouth out the ground comfortable, really, and we made it hard work to a point.
yeah.
And then obviously the Man City game, it's the most shots West Ham's had against Man City since 2016, so that
Mm.
must say a lot. Obviously, we had a bit busy summer, Rob, and we signed 9 players, which
We
is
might not be done.
yeah, it might not be done. It could be another one coming in and all. I'll tell you what, we'll start off with that possible incoming. Mr. Egan, Jonathan Egan, Irish international or 31. What are you saying about that, mate?
Wow. Um, I think that would he be someone that I would have said to you at the beginning of the transfer window, or indeed when the transfer window shut and there was a possibility of getting a free transfer in? Oh, I'd really like to get in John Egan, the ex-Sheffield United centre back. No, he'd have been wouldn't have even been on my radar. I could be completely honest with you. There'd have been a couple of names that would have been ahead of him. Two such names straight off the bat would have been Mats Hummels and Joel Matip. Hummels is going to Roma. Matip, I believe it's still possible, but there seems to be more and more noise around John Egan coming in. Now, so like I say, there's that, but then I sort of then take a step back, and I do remember, as I'm sure you do, when we signed Craig Dawson, and most West Ham fans, I won't say all, but most West Ham fans were horrified and like, what are we doing? We signed him. I'm pretty sure my memory is correct. We signed him on a loan to begin with, and we signed him in the summer transfer window, and he didn't kick a ball from that point to around about December time from memory.
Yeah,
And then he got his
Southampton away.
opportunity. That was it. That was it. He
Yeah,
got his opportunity and he never looked back. And he's now someone that is looked back on with very great fondness. Ballon Dawson. He obviously scored in a
Leon.
really sort of like creditable 3-0 away win in Lyon. Many great memories of Craig Dawson. Yeah, at the beginning, nobody wanted him. So, there is that thing of, well, could this be another Craig Dawson signing? But the key difference is the injury. We
Yeah,
we're we're pulling in a player that, ironically enough, got injured at London Stadium. And he wasn't seen in his Sheffield United shirt since. Now, I sort of sit there and go, well, I know they got relegated, but if he'd have been someone that was in their plans, they'd have probably sort of gone, look, like we did with Ogbonna that time, a couple of seasons back, where he got an injury, his contract was coming to an end, but the club done right by him and went, I tell you what, we'll extend your deal. They didn't do that with him. Maybe that's partly to do with the relegation and finances and whatever, but they let him go. And I sort of sit there and go, maybe there was a reason for that.
Mm. I think with the Egan situation, Rob, I just feel that we're not that West Ham that we once were with Craig Dawson. That makes
True.
sense. I think there's levels now. I think when you look at Max Kilman, Tadibo, Mavropanos, and then you put John Egan in there, it feels like a
Yes.
drop from the quality
Yeah.
down. Listen, I think John Egan's a decent player, and I think he's had a good career. He's ex-Gillingham. He was at Sheffield United for a good while. The Achilles injury is a problem for me. I agree with you. Like going to get someone who gets a really serious injury and is out of action long term is a bit of a worry. I personally feel we're replacing Deadwood with Deadwood to a point. I think John Egan is a bottom half, bottom six sort of player. I think
Okay.
if he goes and plays for a Nottingham Forest or a Leicester City, I could get it to a point. But I don't
Yep.
think West Ham, who are competing for top eight, I think that's
Yep.
where we're looking at. I don't think he's the guy, if I'm being honest.
No.
Right. I'm going to run through a few names for you. We're going to go for everyone. Obviously, League One, Wes come in. He was a free transfer, so I think we all know he's going to be third choice. So that's Wes on that. Lewis Guilherme, Rob. He was the first major signing. What's your thoughts on him? Really?
Strange, a very strange signing, James. I can't lie, and it may ultimately be one that pays off.
Mm.
But I have to judge it at the time that the signing was made, and in the here and the now, and not maybe 2-3 years down the track when, oh, he's done this for us and we're selling him at a tidy profit or whatever happens down the track. Right here, right now, I just find it was really strange signing, and I can't help but feel that, given, in my opinion, one of the priorities was to get a striker in. And yes, we got in Nicholas Fulkrug, but there was a lot of effort put into trying getting John Duran. Now, I believe we got up to 37 million in terms of our bid. They were steadfast that they wanted 40. And I sort of sit there and I go, well, we spent 20 million on Luis Guilherme. Well, couldn't we have diverted some of that money in the direction of getting the John Duran deal done?
Yeah.
I just find it a really, really, really odd bit of business. Like I say, it may be that in the fullness of time we reflect and we go, actually, although at the time a lot of people thought it was odd, it worked out right in the end. But as I say, here and now, I just think, yeah, not sure about that one. And I don't think he's not even been on the pitch. Correct me if I'm wrong. At any point in the three Premier League and the League Cup games, he's not had a kick.
No, he hasn't, mate. He hasn't. I agree with you 100% on this. I think when I look back at it now, if this would have been a signing at the end of the window, say it would have been a
Mhm.
deadline day signing
Yep.
and West Ham would have got it done, I think we'd have looked at it different. And I even said it in the summer, funny enough. I said, like, this feels like we're rushing to get this geezer before anyone else gets in when other issues were at hand, i.e., striker, etc.
Yeah.
Um, Soler has come in on loan. Obviously, we haven't seen him play for West Ham.
Yep.
What are you expecting from him, mate?
I'm expecting him to be involved to a fairly decent extent, but I am kind of expecting him to be Paquetá's backup, if I'm being honest. I think there may be occasions where the manager might actually go for broke and actually play both Paquetá and Soler, but I think those times will probably be fairly infrequent.
Mm.
Um, I do suspect, and I've said this on a number of occasions, and I'll say it again. I suspect Carlos Soler is basic, although he's Paquetá's understudy right now in a lot of ways. I think he will be his replacement ultimately. I think that possibly the signing is succession planning. Now, whether that is because we're possibly going to sell him next summer, or whether it's possibly because the club sensibly are thinking he might get a ban. He might be out of the picture for some considerable time, and we've got an opportunity to get someone in. Okay, maybe in terms of capability, might not quite be up to that level. That is arguable. But certainly in terms of their stylistic attributes, is a fairly similar player. So I think it's a decent bit of business potentially. I'm led to believe that there is an option to purchase, not an obligation. So obviously, if he can come in and prove that he's got the minerals to come in and play Premier League football to a decent level, then I think it's potentially a decent bit of business.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how he copes because
Mm.
obviously, in that midfield, we're quite stacked in there now. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So, coming to another midfielder, Mr. Rodriguez, Argentinian Copa America World Cup winner. How surprised was you, Rob, that we signed him? Because I
came
never
out of
saw this one
nowhere.
coming.
No,
Yeah,
it came literally out of nowhere. It was like, and I'm not going to lie, I've never heard of the geezer. He's got a
yeah,
World Cup winners medal. He's got 2 Copa Americas. He's played in La Liga. Um, I'd never heard of him. I'll be completely honest. But
yeah.
when I sort of like delved a little bit into it, I was like, okay, 30 years of age. It's not exactly lowering the age profile, so that's a little bit okay. But then again, on the plus side, he's a free transfer. I believe from what I read, he's on 40k a week, mate. That's a king's ransom to you and me.
Yeah.
But to a Premier League footballer, that's actually pretty reasonable business.
Yeah.
He's obviously got a backstory with Edson Alvarez. He's obviously got he had a tenuous West Ham connection with his previous club Betis, because he was lining up alongside a certain Pablo Fornals, who I'm sure would have had a sort of like a part to play in getting him to London Stadium. So yeah, I mean, his first game, a lot of people looked at him, myself included. I mean, the first game, I will say, the Celta Vigo game, pre-season friendly, I thought he looked decent, but it's a pre-season friendly.
Yeah.
Then when the next game happened against Villa, everybody observed that he's got lead boots on. He just seems like the pace of the Premier League is too much for him. But I'll be fair to him. It seems that in the intervening time period that maybe he's just calibrated himself better to the demands of Premier League football. Maybe it just took him by a little bit by surprise, and he's kind of looked in the mirror and gone, okay, I need to bring a little bit more to the party than this. So little bit of a concerning start, but since then he's made a decent recovery, and I think he could be a good bit of business.
I think he's a decent player for a free transfer. I think when you're getting linked with sort of N'Golo Kante, and you want to spend 20-25 million for N'Golo Kante, and at 33, and you go and get Rodriguez, who has done it all, especially at international level. I think it's a good signing. Crescencio Somerville, ex-Leeds, 22 years old, Dutch, left-sided winger. We all know about left wingers at our club, Rob. I mean, you had many debates over Ben Rama. Is Crescencio Somerville going to be the next Ben Rama, or is he going to be something a bit more special?
I think it's too early to tell one way or the other. I was excited with the signing, can't lie.
Yep.
I was like, wow, okay, this is good. But I don't think at the minute I would say that he's had what I would consider to be a sufficient opportunity for anyone to really look at him and go, wow, he's a world beater, or he's a carpet beater. He could be anything in between. So I think at the minute he's one that the jury's out for me, and I hope and I believe that he will come good. I just think we need to find a way of getting him in the starting 11 and keeping him there a little bit more regularly, because there's obviously this current situation you've got, which everybody has mentioned. So this isn't going to be a revelation to anyone, I'm afraid, but we've obviously got the situation where Kudus is on the left. Now, that's Crescencio Somerville's position, so you can't have two players on the left. So what do you do? Do you drop out sort of Paquetá, or do you move him sort of like deeper? There's all sorts of different permutations, but I think Somerville needs to get a start. I think he needs to get decent amount of minutes, a couple of games consecutively, before I can really say, Premier League material he is. Because I know he played Premier League football before, but if you look, it was, he'd start this game and he'd get brought off, and then the next game he'd start on the bench and he might come on for the last 15 minutes. And I think, if I remember rightly, I think he's got about, with Leeds, I think he had 12 to 16 starts in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, oh, he played more games than that. Yeah, but from the bench, if you're only getting 5 minutes, I'm not really going to include that. So let's look at starts. So I'm not sure, mate. It could go either way. But like I say, it's a signing I'm in theory excited about, but we'll see.
I think it's a great signing. I agree with you. I do feel that he's going to go up another level to what we had with Ben Rama. I think what you've got is a player that is direct. He can beat a man, and not only get past a man, he's got the pace to blitz away from a man and all. I like the way he creates space for other players. So what he'll do, he will take runners away from him and allow players to run through. I agree with you also. I think I want to see him have minutes. Like the left-sided situation, we will get onto after we finish this segment in regards to the players. But yeah, Crescencio, I think he's a very good player. And what we paid for him, 25 mil, goes up to about 32, 34 mil. I think that's pretty good bit of business.
I think he's a different animal. I mean, you referenced Ben Rama, and I know obviously you was a fan of his. And to be honest, I was when he came in. It's just that things obviously went in a certain direction of travel, and it is what it is. But I do think that they're similar in terms of the position they occupy, but they're completely different players in terms of their attributes for me.
Yeah, I agree. I really do. It's come to a man. Well, I've got to take an L, Rob. This is the moment where Rob's gonna laugh. I've got to take an L. This man here, Max Kilman, £40 million of English sterling,
Yeah.
straight to Wolverhampton Wanderers. First off, what was your thoughts on the signing of the player and the fee? That's what I need to know.
I'll deal with them separately. The signing of the player, loved it. I've wanted
Yeah,
him in the club for a couple of years now, to be honest with you. I thought, he at the time he was at Wolves. I think he was 23, 24 years of age. Um, I thought young, English, still with his prime years, left-footed. Left-footed centre backs do not grow on trees.
yeah,
And there you got someone he's, and technically very adept. He got sort of caps for England playing futsal. So I was like, right. So he's technically, he's not and again, I referenced Craig Dawson earlier, and I'm not trying to sort of do Craig Dawson down because I love you, Craig. Thank you very much. But you know what I mean, sort of like Craig Dawson it was a centre back in the traditional old English mould. Head it, kick it as far away from the goal as possible. He did have other things to his game. That's probably me being a little bit harsh, but you get the point.
yeah,
Max Kilman is more a footballing centre back. Yeah, you've only got to look at the goal that was created by him in the game against Palace to see a
yeah,
demonstration of that fact. Now, let's then now look at the signing. Brilliant, happy. 40 million, however, and that is where I look and go, that's quite a bit of change. That is quite a bit of change to sort of like slap on the manager's desk at Molineux. But look, I suppose it's one of those things. If you look at it, if he was a foreign centre back, would he cost 40 million quid? Probably not. If he was a right-footed centre back, would he cost 40 million quid? Probably not. Those two factors coming together, Wolves have turned around, and the fact that he was a captain as well. So I'm guessing, probably push come to shove, Wolves didn't want to sell him, so that probably again bumped the price up. So they've sort of gone 40 million quid. And it's the old thing, James, the player is only worth what the buying club is prepared to pay. And it's
yeah,
irrespective of what you think or I think on that to a large degree. If the buying club, in this case West Ham, believe that Max Hillman at 40 million quid is decent value for money, then who are we to argue? And the other thing I will say is that there's been many examples down the years of a player who at the time we've thought that's too much. That's ridiculous. And the prime example I always reference in this, I remember when Frank Lampard first went to Chelsea, I think it was 10.75 million. And
Hmm.
my reaction was, Chelsea have had their trousers pulled down there. Nobody thinks that now.
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. Yeah, the only issue with Gilman that I always said is will the fee weigh him down?
Hmm.
Because obviously it's a lot of pressure on a player defender who, let's be honest, is coming from Wolves to West Ham, and there's going to be expectation on him to perform week in, week out. Obviously, we held 70 plus goals last year. We needed someone in there who could do it. But I've got to give him his flowers. I've got to give him some credit. I think he's been brilliant since he's especially in the Premier League. In pre-season, I wasn't convinced, but
Yeah.
ever since the Premier League has started, I've got to be honest, he's gone up another level.
Agreed.
Right, we'll go through the last three players. Tadibo, what do you make of him, mate? Loan with an obligation to buy £40 million.
Yeah. Again, a lot of hype around the signing. Can't lie and say that I've not seen too much of him. In fact, I've seen very little other than what we've seen, the glimpses in a claret and blue shirt. From the people that I know that have seen him, they think he's a wonderful player, but I can't make that call. And I can't really make a judgment on a couple of minutes at the end against Palace, I think it was.
Yeah,
He didn't come on the pitch against City. He had the first half against Bournemouth, where I thought there was some touches, some nice touches, some sort of like he was trying to get forward to good effect as well and supplement the attack. I mean, there was one point where he popped up on the right wing, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? That's a bit of a strange position for him. Very odd. But there were also a few things where I looked at and went, not sure about that myself. But again, it's it's a little bit of early days. It's too early to judge, mate. To be fair. Oh, again, jury's out. I'll reserve judgment.
Mm. For me, I think he's a brilliant signing. I was over the moon when we signed this geezer 'cause I think with him and Kilman together, like both fully fit and both up to speed, both knowing each other's games. I think we've got two very, very good centre halves there, ball playing centre halves.
Mhm.
He's obviously played for Barcelona. I think he come through at Barcelona, and obviously he was at Nice, and now he's at West Ham. And there's been a lot of big clubs touting for this geezer: Juventus, Manchester United, to name a few other clubs also. So yeah, Tadibo, I think he's going to be very, very good at West Ham. I think that deal as a whole is an excellent deal for West Ham. You get him on a loan with an obligation to buy, which freed up money for us to go out and spend on other players. So yeah, I'll make mine short and sweet. I agree with you. I think the jury's still out, but I'm confident that Tadibo will be a very good signing for West Ham.
Bit like Somerville in the sense that I think theoretically could be a masterstroke,
Yeah.
but because I've not seen enough minutes of them playing Premier League football, as I say, I can't really hang me hat on it.
Yes, which is valid. I'm not gonna lie. Right, we'll come to the striker. I'll leave Wan-Bissaka till last. Uh, how can I put this, Rob? To you, are you surprised that West Ham sort of changed tack and went from Duran, which we've discussed, like you're chasing Duran down the whole summer, and then you completely change the profile of the player, the age, everything, and go for a Nicholas Füllkrug at 31, soon to be 32.
Yeah, very strange. And again, the player that the signing may come off. We may look at the signing of Fulkrug in the fullness of time as a masterstroke. Right here, right now, I do have some concerns. I think that when it was first announced we was going for him, and that came in the wake of obviously going after John Duran, I believed at the time that we was going after him purely to get Aston Villa's attention and say to them, if you don't want to sell him, we'll just go over here. We'll go to Dortmund and we're going to start talking to this fella's agent. How do you
Yeah,
like those onions? And that it was a little bit of a game of poker, a little game of chicken with them to sort of, so that they would go, we've got an unhappy player here. He really is a bit of a bad apple, and the club that was looking to take him have now turned on their heels and they're now gone to Germany to have a chat with this fella. And it was sort of, I think it was a little game of sort of like getting them to sort of say, well, excuse me, West Ham, could you come back? Let's have a little chat. Let's not be so hasty. And then when we signed him, I was like,
Mhm.
because stylistically, in terms of their skill set and everything, we go from John Duran to Nicholas Fulkrug. I could have understood it if we'd have gone from John Duran to a player who, in terms of their attributes, was fairly similar,
Yeah,
and we didn't. We've gone from a rapid, young, sort of vibrant, exuberant finisher, instinctive finisher, to a player who's significantly less rapid, significantly less mobile. Don't get me wrong, his career record's 1 in 3, and if you look at his international record, it's sensational.
yeah.
But in terms of their we've gone from that striker to that striker, and they're offering completely different things. I don't understand this.
I agree. I agree. I do. I agree with you 100% what you just said though about I think West Ham tried to play the game and the game sort of backfired and like it was a bit not a panic or could you class it as a panic buy to a point
Mm,
if Nicholas Fulkrug's there and Durant and Villa are not playing the game, do
mm,
West Ham commit to Fulkrug and say right we can get this man? Otherwise, West Ham could end up with no one, and
mm.
then that is a problem. Do you know what I mean? So maybe, but I do agree with you. The profile and everything just doesn't make a lot of sense. How will you assess Fulkrug in the coming weeks, Rob? Before we move on,
Well, he's got to get starts, James. He's got to get starts, and he's got to get minutes playing as a
Mm.
9. He's got to, he's got to get goals. He's got to get assists. That's ultimately what a striker is judged by. As I say, his career record in competitive league football is, on average, over his career, 1 goal every 3 games. If he can replicate that over a Premier League season and get us approximately 12 goals a season, there or thereabouts, all right, it's not 20 goals a season, but do you know what? If he can get 12 goals and a lot of them are goals that are gonna get us 3 points or salvage a point, whatever, that will be worth its weight in gold at the end of the season, mate. But I just come back to the point that I do have my concerns that in terms of what Lopetegui was looking to achieve in signing a striker when he first went for Duran, we've got a player in who's starkly different.
Yeah, he is, mate. He most certainly is. Finally, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, mate. What are you saying about him?
What a bargain. 15
Yeah,
million quid, arguably the best defensive right back in the Premier League, in my opinion. Um, very little gets past him, probably oxygen, and that's about it. Left wingers, not so much. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't get my head around sort of the fact that he was a £50 million player for Man United, and we've got him for 15. Yeah, the really good signing, mate. So it's again a player that I've sort of looked at for a number of years and gone, yeah, I'd take him. And everybody goes on about, oh yeah, he's a great defender, but going forwards not so clever. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. What's a defender's first job? What's their first responsibility? Is to defend. Right. Okay. So you're telling me he's the best defensive right back in the Premier League and you're complaining. Forgive me. I maybe I'm a bit old school. Maybe I'm sort of like in from a bygone era. But hey, do you know what? And I actually quite like a right back that can defend well. And if they can get forward and supplement the attack, great. That's an added bonus. But it's not really much good if it's like, oh, he's brilliant going forward. What's he like defending? Oh, he's absolutely useless.
yeah, I know. I completely agree. I personally think he's a bargain, like absolute bargain. Like you say, at Man United, I think we learnt that with Lingard to a point. When you're in a toxic environment like Old Trafford, and it ain't going so well, it can make good players look bad. And
Mhm.
I think he's a very good player. Getting him on a 7-year deal, which is unreal to a point, with the money that we paid for him and the quality that he brings. Yeah, I think he's an absolute steal, mate. Absolute brilliant signing.
Massively.
Who, who is the best signing for you, though, Rob, out of all of them?
Where's Fotheringham?
League One Wes. You know what I mean?
Oh, he was a championship goalkeeper. Championship. He was a Premier League goalkeeper in point of fact last season. Shipped
Yeah,
in about 2,000 goals, but never mind. No, it's got to be between right now. It's got to be between Kilman or Wan-Bissaka. I'd probably just nudged very slightly towards Kilman at the moment, and the simple reason for that is because he's played more minutes. It's a close thing, though, mate. It is such a close call between those two, but those two right now stand head and shoulders above all the other signings for me.
yeah, I agree. We've got to talk about a few situations that's happened at West Ham over the
Hmm.
sort of last few games. Um, First off, I want to get your thoughts on Lucas Paqueta and where he is best fit at West Ham. Obviously, he's been playing a 3-man midfield. He's been a bit inconsistent to say the least. What are your thoughts on Lucas Paqueta, mate, in that position?
In my opinion, and this is probably going to be very controversial, but there might be some people out there who agree with what I'm saying. I actually think that at the minute there is a question for me as to whether Lucas Paqueta should be playing the next game. That's
Yeah,
that's my opinion. Now, I'm not saying he should be dropped. Let me make that clear. All I'm saying is I think that the question at the very least needs to be asked: does he need a little bit of time out of the starting lineup? Is it something to do with the situation that he's obviously got to deal with in the background. I'm sure that has to be playing on his mind to some degree or another. Whether that's impacting on his performances, I don't know. Is it purely a question of the position in which he's being utilised and the role that he's being asked to provide to the team? I really don't know. But other than scoring a penalty from 12 yards, which, let's be honest, a professional footballer, it should be a given that from 12 yards with no defenders between you and the goal line and just a goalkeeper, okay, he scored a penalty. Okay, right. What else has he done?
Nothing.
Nope.
Yeah.
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 I'm sorry, with the best will in the world, I think for a player of his, for his abilities, what he's brought to the party so far is lacking. And like I say, even if the manager decides, the head coach, old school, the head coach decides to start him in the next game away to Fulham, fine, not a problem. But something needs to change, and I don't know what that something is, and that's where the head coach has to figure it out. He's paid a lot of money to figure that out. I'm not, and but whether that's to push Bowen up top, move Kudus to the right, put Paquetá sort of wherever, whether he puts him at the 10, whether he puts him left, because he did play on the left last season to decent effect, although he would sort of roam inside. I don't know, or whether you maybe even sort of like drop him a little bit deeper and play him alongside Alvarez. But something needs to change because this version of Lucas Paqueta is just he's not functioning in the claret and blue shirt right now.
I absolutely agree, mate. I absolutely agree. I will go on to Kudus on the left because that's an interesting second sort of topic of conversation. But the Paqueta problem at the minute is because, which I personally believe, is because he's in midfield. I think we've got a problem with him being in midfield, Rob. And if he gives the ball away, attackers are literally on the opposition are just firmly running towards our goal. Then I think he's a bit lost in that position. I think in a two-man midfield, I think you got a point. Him and Alvarez, yeah, it wouldn't be too bad against a lesser side. Obviously, it changes with the quality of the opposition, but I do think West Ham are unbalanced at the minute, and I think him on the left hand side of a three-man midfield is one of them. I'm going to come on now to Mo, who's on the left wing position.
Mhm.
What do you make of this? Because for me, this is where Lopetegui does lose me a little bit with Mohamed Kudus left-sided attacker when he's our best dribbler, probably at the club. He's one of the best dribblers in the Premier League, but he's playing on the left, mate.
I mean, to be fair, the previous manager did that from time to time as well. He shunted him out on the left-hand side. And I get it. It's like, are you going to dislodge Bowen from the right? Well, you could, and you could play him as the striker. I personally am a believer in the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, in relation to Bowen. He's quite happy on the right. It works until there's an absolutely pressing need to change that, then I wouldn't. So I would leave him where he is. But the problem is that that's arguably that's Kudus' best position as well, arguably. So it then makes me sort of think, well, if you're not going to put Bowen up top, could you play Kudus as the sort of like the number 10, the playmaker role, and just say to him, right, you go where you want to go, cause damage. And this is why I sort of say about either moving Paquetá left or dropping him a little bit deeper, or I don't know, maybe even a change of formation. I don't know. As I say, not for me to figure that one out. That's down to the head coach. He's paid a lot of money to do that. But yeah, I don't. Again, a player that I think we're not really getting the best out of. I don't think it's entirely his fault. I think that we need to try and find a way of getting the best out of Mo Kudus, because I think on his day he's sensational.
Yeah, I honestly do believe that. I think he's up there with Bowen as one of our best players at the club. Got a question for you, Rob. Yeah.
Far away.
Now, on the right hand side, right back position, we obviously had Sufal. We've now upgraded with Wan-Bissaka, who is defensively very good. Then you go sort of to the right wing position. Who would you rather have as right wing? Mohamed Kudus, who is defensively not as good as Bowen, but doesn't need to be with Wan-Bissaka backing him up, or Jared Bowen on the right for you?
As I say, I do believe if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, if we could move Bowen as the striker and we didn't lose anything in terms of his output, goals, assists, work rate, and all the rest of it, maybe. I am concerned that by changing a winning formula for Bowen, that's basically been his position for since he walked through the door, more or less. Um, my concern is that if you're changing something that you know works, why change it?
Mm,
You know,
mm,
I'm torn. It is something I'm torn by. I can understand the clamour for playing him as a striker, and when he's played there, he's done reasonably well. I'm
yeah.
not gonna say he's gone up top and he's all of a sudden he's turned into a pub player. Not saying that. I just feel that is his best position.
Mm. I, for me, I've always said I don't mind Bowen up front. I think he presses from the front. I think he's a very good presser of the ball. I think when people look at him and say, well, he's only had 18 touches in the match, he's the sort of person that only needs one or two touches to score a goal to a point. And I
Mm.
think when you've got Mo on the right, who is not on the left hand side, and it proved it against Manchester City to a point. And I know Man City are good, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
defensively, he doesn't get back enough to help the covering left back in Emerson
Mm.
to a point. On the right hand side, I think he can come back, but Wan-Bissaka is so good at a defensive standpoint just doesn't have to really defend because Wan-Bissaka is that good at it. So for me, I've of the belief that if you put Mo on the right and you put Joe Bowen going through the middle, that that is a powerful sort of side to a point. You got a right winger who can get past people, and you got a centre forward or like sort of a player that can play in that sort of central role, i.e.,
Mm.
like Bowen, who can run in behind, he can drop deep, he can lay balls off. He's very unselfish to a
Yeah.
point. He will hand balls to other people.
Yeah.
Um, I think with the striker situation right now with Antonio and Forkrug, it would not surprise me, Rob, in the slightest, if he ever did go back to type and went Bowen, Kudus, Paqueta as a 10 or on the left, and then sort of have a three-man midfield that way. Do you know what I mean? Look, basically like a 4-3-3, but like the
Yeah.
old 4-3-3 sort of thing with Paqueta, Bowen, and Kudus up front.
Yeah.
But that will be interesting to see on that. Finally, the Thomas Suchek sort of love-hate affair with West Ham fans. What have you made of that? Because that's been very in-depth over the summer.
Do you know what? I can understand why people get the arse with him because he's not Andrea Pirlo, he's not
Yeah.
Rud Hullet, he's not going to spray balls around left, right, and centre. He's not going to thread balls through the eye of a needle. However, he is very effective at getting goals by hook, by crook. Um, Blunt force trauma, I think, is how I would describe him. And another thing that I think most West Ham fans of old, in fact, all West Ham fans of old, love a player that gives 100%, whatever their deficiencies are. Um, if you've got a player that okay, look, you know, he's it's not going for him, but you know what? You can see he is absolutely running his socks off. Um, that goes a long way for me. You know, I mean, we've seen many players down the year, James, um, that have got 10 times the technical ability of Thomas Suchek. But Thomas Suchek's got 10 times the work rate of he will cover every blade of grass.
Yeah.
What would you rather? And I know they're not mutually exclusive. I appreciate that, but just what would you rather? Would you rather some fancy Dan prima donna who struts around, preens, and sort of rolls around on the floor crying every 5 minutes? Or would you like to have someone that, limited though he may be technically, will literally spill blood, and he has on multiple occasions, um, for the team and put the team ahead of himself. So I don't understand. And this is the thing, you're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to say, I don't believe Thomas Souček should play this game, or I don't believe Thomas Souček should be anywhere near the starting 11, this, that, and the other. I do think that sometimes it does cross a little bit of a line with him. And
Yeah,
I think that's completely unwarranted. Whatever you think.
yeah, I completely agree. Couldn't agree with you anymore there. I feel Thomas Suchet's got his limitations, but I think what he doesn't give, he makes up in other ways with
Mm,
heart, desire, commitment. Scored some big goals for us last season. I think people keep
mm.
forgetting that, like Burnley away, Everton away, even the Arsenal game, like he got us on the way to a famous win there. So,
Got some important goals down the years, 100%.
and even this year, like the goal against Palace, like gets us
Yep.
on our way in that situation. I feel like the abuse he gets is like you would think he's the worst player going. I don't know whether this is like the West Ham scapegoating sort of vibe that they do at the minute, where every time there's a player, they're sort of they look at other players and they look at him, they have to scapegoat him to try and get him out.
Yeah.
But I do feel for him. I do. He's here till 2027. He signed a deal a few years ago to stay until 2027. There's people screaming to get him out the door this summer, and I'm thinking he's a unique player that you can use in key games, i.e., if West Ham are searching for a goal in the last 20 minutes and your midfield's run its race, Thomas Souček can come on and bag you a goal and bag you a win. He does it on a regular basis. So I think it's interesting to see how he carries on
Yeah.
in the near future for me.
I did think I'll be completely straight and honest. I did think James Ward-Prowse, Thomas Souček, one of them stays, one of them goes. Which one stays, which one goes? That's the manager's decision to make. Probably, if I'd have really sort of been asked to nail my colours to a particular mast, I probably would have gone with Thomas Souček, and maybe there's a little bit of sentiment behind that decision.
Yeah,
Because let's be completely honest, in terms of their technical footballing ability, I would suggest James Ward-Prowse is the superior player. But I just, like I say, he's been with us a long time. He's given a lot to the club down the years. Like I say, he's had his head busted open on more than one occasion where he's literally been spilling claret onto the turf. He does get an element of the fans that I think sometimes, like I say, having an opinion, saying that Thomas Souček as a footballer doesn't work for me in the West Ham shirt. That's fine, not a problem. You're entitled to an opinion, but I do think there are sometimes I've seen some stuff where I've gone, that's a bit much. That's a bit much. Come on, he's a human
yeah,
being. He's been a great servant for the club down the years, and even if you think his race is run, show him a little bit of respect.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree, mate. Uh, Moving on to the final bits of this video, Rob. What's your expectation for West Ham moving forward now? Obviously, when the international break has been and gone,
Mhm.
what is it that you're expecting West Ham come Fulham on that Saturday afternoon?
Well, I was there for the corresponding fixture last season. I went with my daughter, who was very excited to take her first trip to Craven Cottage. And I think, what was it, 4-0 at half time?
Yeah,
We had front row seats. The cottage was over to our right, and we got absolutely smashed to pieces. We was absolutely abject, absolutely
yeah,
abject. So, what do I hope as far as the corresponding fixture this season is concerned? Considerably better than that would be nice.
yeah,
That would be a starting point, not to be 4-0 down at half time and the game done. Um, I just want us to go out there and just show what we're all about, and not play with fear, play with a bit of courage in our hearts. Try and I realise we're the away team, and the home team should have in any contest should have a reasonable expectation of exerting their dominance on the visitors. But I know last season they finished above us, but I'm not going to sort of make too many apologies for it. I think that we are a bigger club than Fulham. I don't think that it's an unreasonable expectation to say that West Ham should go to Craven Cottage, and it shouldn't be an unreasonable expectation for us to puff our chest out a little bit. And do you know what? I think we're going to go there and we're going to get a result.
I agree. I agree. It has to be better than last year because last year was
Oh
absolutely
God.
horrendous,
Ugh.
and I felt sorry for anyone who was there, especially at half time.
Have you ever been to Craven Cottage, James?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the strangest thing, isn't it? I went there the season before when the season we won the Conference League, and latter end of the season we won 1-0. We shithoused a 1-0 win. Jared Bowen. No, was it Jared Bowen? I think Jared
Own
Bowen had a
goal, wasn't
shot
it?
and it was an own goal.
Yeah,
And I was there. And it was the first time I'd ever been to Craven Cottage for a Premier League game. It was the strangest thing in the world. I went in. I'm there. I've got my beer. I've got my pie. I'm standing there, minding my own business. And I'm looking round, and there's a Fulham shirt, and I was like, "What? Is he a
yeah,
steward or something?" And then I looked around. There's a Fulham coat, and there's a Fulham scarf, and there's this and there's that, and there's a load of West Ham in there. And I was like, "This is
yes,
bizarre. This is
yes.
really
It's
weird."
it's an open end. Yeah, it's open there.
Yeah,
I went there a few years ago. I remember a Nobby Solano go. That's how far back
yeah,
I'm going. I think it was Nobby Solano, like Lewis Barmorte was playing for us. And then what it was, well, I'll never forget. I went up there and I was trying to get into a place with a pint, and I had no ID on me, and they wouldn't let me in. And you know what I'm saying? You had to walk through a load of tennis courts, if I remember rightly. There's a load
yeah,
of tennis courts at the back. You have to walk through all them, and you got all the posh people playing tennis. There's got a load of
yeah,
copies walking through, and this, yeah, it's a place. Yeah, Putney
yeah.
Bridge around that way. Yeah, it's
Very,
definitely a
very middle
place.
class area.
Yeah, very posh, very
Yeah,
privileged. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Country club, don't you know?
100%. Rob, obviously we've got Fulham, like we just
Yep.
discussed. We've got Liverpool on the Wednesday in the League Cup game. I'm gonna be honest, Rob. I'm getting a bit sort of tired with these sort of domestic cup competitions because it seems like it's just benefiting the bigger clubs. What did
Oh
you make of
God,
that cup? What did you make of that
disgusting.
cup draw?
Absolutely
Yeah,
disgusting, mate. I knew nothing about that nonsense of we're gonna segregate the European teams away from you peasants. They're gonna be seeded. They're gonna be kept apart from each other. And I didn't find that out until the day before, and I went, what?
yeah,
What? Just absolutely bonkers. And still, even now, and I've had somebody try to explain it to me, and maybe it's me being thick. I still look at it and go, "Nah,
yeah,
nah, 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 nah. This is complete bullshit." I mean, these clubs. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure these are in the main the top sort of clubs in England, right? So
yeah,
therefore, they're the clubs that will have the deepest squad. So if you turned around to them and said, "Well, you've got to play 2 games in 3 days or 2 games in 4 days or whatever to fulfil your commitments," oh well, boo hoo,
yeah. I know,
take it on
I
the
know.
chin, get on with it.
I just thought it was disgusting, mate. Obviously, getting Liverpool away, the haunting themes of last season, just before Christmas, was
I
very
was
hard to
there.
take.
I was
Yeah,
there with my daughter. We had 4 odd hours on a bloody coach going. We went from Rush Green, the training ground, jumped on a coach, went all the way up to Liverpool, and we went with an element of hope. And then we saw the team sheet, and that was gone.
yeah.
We knew that Moyes had swallowed. Job done.
stay
Just
stay
just
away from
wasted it.
stay away from away games this year.
Yeah. I might just do that, mate. I might have to. Mind you,
Yeah,
say that I heard a story. It was on Talk Sport. I think was it yesterday? I'm sure it was yesterday. Where this guy, and he was apparently, it must have been from the south because he had a southern accent. I don't know if he was from London specifically, but somewhere in the south. And he turned around and said that for some reason, he supported Sheffield Wednesday.
yeah,
And he turned around and said he saw them win a game for the first time in, I think he said, about 15 years of supporting them, right? All the other games he'd been to, they'd either drawn or lost, right? And then it took him another 13 or whatever it was years for him to see their second victory. And then he's now on another sequence of about 14 years where he hasn't seen them win. And he turned around and said that he now turns up to sort of Hillsborough and people look at him and go, what are you doing here? Go, please, get out, sort of thing. He's like he's seen them win like 2-3 times in sort of like about 30 years. You're like, Jesus Christ, I've got nothing on this geezer right now, but if it carries on, I might have to reconsider.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I 100% agree. But listen, being there, it's the moment, it's the experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rob, final thoughts. What's your final thoughts, mate? Basically, to round this video up.
What, in terms of my aspirations for the season?
Yeah, as a whole.
Okay, well, look, we've had a good couple of seasons, and my appreciation for what David Moyes did is out there. He gave me one of the greatest nights of my life in Prague. Not, and I thank him for that. But by God, the football was a tough watch. It was a tough watch. So what do I want to see this season? Well, the starting point would be to have a game of football going on in front of me where, and I've referenced this on a few recordings that I've done, the game at Sheffield United last season at London Stadium, and this is not hyperbole, this happened exactly as I'm about to describe it. We are 2-0 up in the second half, and I am nodding off. I'm going to sleep, literally going to sleep, right? So I would like to see football that at no point this season does that to me. I'd like to see us playing more attractive football. I'd like to see us pushing for European qualification this season. And even if we just fall short, so long as we're in the shake up towards the business end of the season, I'd like to see us at opportune moments. It'd be quite nice to see if there's any players in the youth team that are showing any signs of promise, whether it's league games, cup games, whatever. Let's see what they can do. Let's see what they can do. And maybe a deep cup run. I'd say if we can get one of the domestic cups, if we can get to a semi-final and God forbid actually win it, I'd take that, mate, all day long.
Yeah. I think for me, I think this season has got to be like maintain a standard. I think that's the first thing I will say. I think West Ham have to maintain this standard of being in the top 10 over the last X amount of years, and they've got to do it this season to a point. I don't think finishing in the bottom half this season will be acceptable, especially with the talent that we've got and the signings that we've made. Um, I I'm optimistic, but I'm still a bit sceptical in regards of certain issues, like the left hand side with Kudus, Paqueta situation, etc. But that's down to Lopetegui as a whole. I think Lopetegui's going to have to come into it when we go to Fulham, and also he's going to have to start being a bit more braver with strikers. Like for Krug's time, if you sign this man, start him. I think you've just got to start him. Like I don't know how much more time he needs to sort of bed into a club. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how West Ham cope, and I think West Ham will be all right this year. I agree with you. The football does look better. It does look better. I think we're more progressive, moving up the pitch and into attacking areas. And defensively, we look a little bit better also. And I think when we've got our full line out of like back line of like Wan-Bissaka, Kilman, Tadibo, and Emerson, I think that's a pretty good back four. Right, and that'll compete. Rob, thank you very much for
You're
coming
more than
on.
welcome.
I really do appreciate it. Shout out all your social media links and where people can find you, apart from Facebook, because I'm not on there no more.
if it carries on, mate, I might not be either from what you told me before.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, James. So obviously, as James said at the beginning, my name's Rob. I'm sure you've all worked that out by now. I've got a West Ham fan YouTube channel called The West Ham Massive. And we've also got, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on X, used to be known as Twitter back in the day. You can find us on Instagram. And I've even got a TikTok account for the channel. I can't say I use it that often, but I probably should. So yeah, if any of you guys have found me mildly interesting or a little bit sort of informative or whatever, please consider hopping over to the West Ham Massive. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Go over and subscribe to Rob's channel. Good man. He's been doing the game as long as I've been doing it, and he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, go and subscribe to the
Sometimes.
West Ham. Well, we'll get it right sometimes. I will say that. Yeah, go over and subscribe to his channel. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to E20 Zone TV and hit notification also here. at E20. I'll be back again to do another video with another content creator, probably next week. So, yeah, keep up to date with everything on E20. Subscribe to that man's channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very, very soon.
See you.